welcome to our Animal Justice Academy Lunchtime Live. Our topic today is Veganuary Expands to Canada. I'm Kimberly Carroll. I am the director of AJ, and I really want to welcome all you compassionate folks here with us live, and a welcome to those of you who are watching the replay. Veganuary is a campaign that encourages folks around the world to try eating vegan for the month of January and beyond. Since launching in 2014, it's grown into one of the world's biggest vegan campaigns. And next month, it officially launches in Canada. We've got some of the crew here who are helping to make that happen. You have their full bios on the event registration page. So I'm just going to do a quick little background on everybody as Kirsten brings them up onto screen. Wendy Matthews is the International Head of Partnerships and Expansion at Veganuary and previously served as the US Director, helping to launch the campaign in the US. She's been actively involved in vegan animal protection movement activities for over a decade now. You might remember her at Farm Sanctuary. We have Daniel Monoogian. Oh, you know what, Daniel? I didn't even ask how to pronounce your last name. Are you going to help me out with this?
It's Monoogian.
Monoogian, thank you, Daniel Monoogian. It's my first big host mistake, not asking how to pronounce my guest name.
I'm totally used to it. I'm not, no offense taken.
Thank you. Daniel Monoogian is an assistant director with Ernst & Young, the corporate sponsor of Veganuary in Canada, as well as the outreach director on the Veg Ottawa board. For the last 2 years, he's led a Veganuary campaign and workplace challenge across all Ernst & Young offices in Canada. So I'm super excited to hear about your experiences, Daniel. We also have Nital Jethalal, is the outgoing president of VegTO. He's also the director of policy and economics for plant-based data, synthesizing the latest research, policy, and best practices in food and agriculture to incentivize more plant-based environments and food procurement. And finally, we have Alan Wong, who is president of Veg Ottawa board. After a decade of working in public transit operations, Alan has transitioned to a full-time career working for animals through our friends at HSI Canada. Welcome, folks. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Great to be here.
Let's take all of our mutes off so that I can hear your voices and hear, so I don't feel like I'm like in a little tunnel by myself. Yay. It's so good to see your faces. I mean, honestly, I just haven't seen anybody's faces for a long time. So okay, so we're going to cover a lot of territory today, folks. We're going to talk strategy. We're going to talk about how you can jump in and in the building of Veganuary in Canada. But Wendy, I think we're going to start with you. If you can just give us a little Veganuary 101, just to get us started, like what's involved, and also why do you think it's blown up so big in the last 10 years? Give us a little a few details around that.
Sure. Yeah. And hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today to talk Veganuary. Jenny, I love your banner. I saw it when you jumped on. How cool that you did a polar bear dip with a Veganuary banner. Inspiring. I just did one last month and it was not for me, but a story for another time. In regards to your question, Kimberly, so I think you gave a great 101 on the first part of what we do, which is creating this 31-day pledge in January and promoting it all around the world to get people to try vegan. And the other half of what we do at our organization is connect with businesses. So we work to help them launch and promote new plant-based options during January and also throughout the rest of the year. And the idea is that we create this momentum, we create this buzz where people want to give vegan a try, where everybody's talking about it. And then at the same time, we work with businesses to create more product availability and visibility and just bring down some of those barriers that make it sometimes challenging for people to give it a try for the first time.
And it's a big campaign, Wendy. Give us some sense of some of the stats.
Sure. So we launched for the first time in the UK in 2014. And as of this January, we're now in 20 countries. So it's been quite a globalization over the last 5-6 years. I'm so excited to finally have Canada be an official part of it. And, you know, it's more than just the organization. It's really grown into quite a movement. And last year we had based on some nuanced research in the countries where we're active, we estimate about 25 million people took some sort of action for Veganuary, which is
Wow.
super, super exciting. And I can share a link that kind of goes into the breakdown of how we came up with that number. But I believe the reason we've been so successful is because we maintain a fun and a welcoming and a non-judgmental approach, right? We want everybody to feel welcome at the table. We want diet change to feel accessible. And we provide all the simple free resources and the community that make it, feel a little bit more approachable. And I'll say that in this group of activists, I think it's important to know too, we don't dumb it down, right? We want to keep it simple. We want to keep it easy, but we also take the time to educate participants about nutrition, climate impact, impact on animals, so that they can walk away not just knowing how to eat more plants, but also why.
Oh, I love that. And especially, just the topic that we had coming in here when we started today, I keep saying tonight, it gets dark in here. Today was an investigation that animal justice has been a part of. And that's one of the things, Wendy, that I really love about Veganuary is you are constantly bringing the reason for Veganuary back to animals, and which considering probably a lot of folks that are doing Veganuary are doing it for health reasons, like that's sort of the big draw, I think, for probably a lot of people. Correct me if I'm wrong. But why does Veganuary take that direction, and how does that go over with participants?
Yeah, so you've probably seen the research over the years that shows no matter what reason someone's foot gets in the door when it comes to eating vegan, it's usually animals that keep them there. So we recognize there are so many different reasons to give vegan a try, right? As you said, health is a really big one, especially in the US. Climate reasons, I mean, sometimes it's just the challenge aspect, kind of the wellness angle. So we want to build content that can speak to all of those different motivations. And we have emails that cover nutrition, wellness, environmental impact, but the animals are always at the core of what we do. And we really don't shy away from bringing up those issues, but we kind of drip feed them in a way that doesn't overwhelm, but instead kind of educates. And in about, I've been with the org a little over 5 years. I've really only received a very small handful of emails from folks who felt upset or like there was a bait and switch that happened, right? I think people are really naturally curious. And once they start questioning the way they eat, they become open to learning more. And we're really careful to frame things in a way that meets people where they are and celebrates the impact that they're already making, so that it feels, not judgmental, but like they're part of something a lot bigger than they are.
And another thing that impresses me about Veganuary is the number of participants who make a permanent change. Like it's not just the January. And also there's something you've referred to as the Veganuary Effect. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because some people are like, oh, it's just a challenge, but it's so much more.
Sure. So before I was working with Veganuary, back when I was just an outside observer in the movement, this is one of the things that really impressed me about this campaign and made me want to be a part of it. I think there's something really powerful about framing Veganuary as a challenge. It makes it all feel a bit less intimidating, but that doesn't take away from real lasting change. And I didn't do Veganuary. It didn't exist when I first went vegan. It was about 14 years ago, but I did start with a 30-day challenge. And I really believe in that model. Like, I think that it's really effective. And pretty consistently, our post-campaign surveys, so our 6-month follow-ups, our immediate follow-ups, about 80% of participants tell us that they're going to make permanent change to their diet. And the way we define that is reducing animal products by at least 50%.
Whoa,
so
yeah.
80% of people commit to reducing by at least 50, but within that 80, there's also 25% who tell us they're staying full vegan. So quite a lot of retention. And the surveys are answered by tens of thousands of people. It's not a small sample size. So I think, and actually I'll put a link to the survey in here because it seems like this is a group that's really curious about strategy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to look.
I put it in already, Wendy. It's in there. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say have a look through that. But the biggest takeaway is when we ask them why they made the change permanent, they tell us it's because it was easier than they expected. So that's the goal, to break down barriers and to make it feel easy.
I love it. Yeah, it's that point of entry, simplicity, easy. being able to funnel people through a more expansive sort of experience as they go. So love that. Okay, so last time you were here, Wendy, it was almost 2 years to the day. And I was angling for Veganuary to officially come to Canada. I don't know if you remember that. I'm like, anytime? Is it coming anytime? And so what's transpired since then?
Yeah, you were very persuasive, Kim. It's all happening now. So I remember that conversation very well. And, even at that time, we were exploring options for bringing Veganuary to Canada, but nothing was concrete. And like you said, at the head of the call, I was the US director back then, and I was not necessarily directly involved in expansion, but now that's my full-time job is expansion and partnerships. And Canada presented a really interesting challenge for us. So to date, our model for partnerships is every country, it's like one country, one partner. And we've been looking to Canada to find some national Canadian group that we could work with, in Canada at large. And just what I kept finding was that Canada is a highly regionalized country, right? So this big national organization I was imagining just kind of didn't exist. But there were a lot of suitable partner organizations that were regional groups like VegTO and Veg Ottawa. And I started to realize, like, if that's how people in Canada are already organizing their activism, there's probably a lot of wisdom in that. And this idea that it has to be one big national group doesn't make sense for Canada. So I met up with Nital, who I'd been in touch with for a few years. We had a great sit down at Ava. We tossed some ideas around and kind of came up with this idea for building the Veganuary Canada Coalition. And I'm super excited about the collaborative power of this group. I think all the people in this call are absolutely brilliant. There's so much momentum to harness in Canada, and yeah, I can't wait to see what they do this year. And I'm actually going to drop a link in the chat to a page about the coalition so you can see all of the different groups involved.
Fabulous. Want to see that for sure. Okay, so Nital, Alan, Daniel, you're all part of Team Canada and paving the way for Veganuary to launch in Canada this January with all the initiatives that you're all, I know that you all have so much on your plate already. Why is Veganuary something you were really drawn to setting up in Canada? Nital, let's start with you because I know the connector. I call Nital the connector because he's always putting the dots together for everybody. So let's start with you, my dear.
Sure, and it's great to be here alongside all these great people. I mean, there's several different reasons. One is I've been wanting to see more coordination in Canada, and so this challenge that Wendy had fit perfectly with this opportunity that we've been seeking for many a year now. I think you might remember, Kimberly, during the pandemic when VegFest had to go digital, there was many panels. One that never ran was with the heads of other organizations across Canada. And I was sad about that. And, there's so much stuff going on and it's so regionally diverse in terms of what caters to different people so that's one, is the fact that this presented the opportunity to work with great people. And it, serendipitously, Alan became the president of Veg Ottawa. We have Daniel here, who everybody will hear about later with his experience. So it really fit like a glove there. And then just more broadly, I think everybody here is at least going to be, I imagine most of this crowd's familiar with just the state of affairs right now. Like there's all these challenges in Canada, whether it's healthcare, chronic diseases account for 90% of our deaths here. Every 3 minutes, a Canadian is diagnosed with diabetes. Heart disease still accounts for 1 in 5 deaths. And so this is all costing us a fortune as a country. It's like over 12% of our GDP. In fact, I only learned from Dr. Miles Sargent last year that healthcare is responsible for more emissions as well than both aviation and shipping in Canada. So we're one of the worst healthcare polluters in the world. We're also environmentally, we're way behind, even though the government likes to tell us otherwise. We're the second worst emitter in the G20 and one of the worst in the world. So you add those things together, and then this whole food security crisis that's been exploding, and you being Matt Noble's partner know better than anybody, I think, here. So food prices are continuing to go up, like 3 to 5%. I just saw a report next year. And so, as most people here know, the research shows that plant-based diets can actually slash household food bills. It really is a Swiss Army policy solution when it comes to, and lifestyle improvement when it comes to all these different areas. But while there's all these challenges, there's always all these other opportunities too. So we have a new national school food program being rolled out in Canada, which is super cool. If anybody here doesn't know that, I think in April 16th, the federal government committed over or $1 billion over 5 years to launch a national school food program. It is set to adhere by the Canada Food Guide, which is very plant forward. And then in June, there's a national school food policy. And we actually have 5 different cities in Canada who all have a significant role in school foods, Toronto being the biggest. There's over $20 million in student nutrition programs. So there's all these different levers where more plant-based foods can, that we can pull on to increase plant-based foods everywhere. And the appetite is definitely grown since that last chat Wendy and I had that she referenced. Here in Toronto, we had a poll that showed even though there's only 2.5% to 3% vegans, 3% vegetarians, the poll in 2021, 64% say they want to reduce their meat consumption. And so when you take all those things together and what other research shows us around how you can really impact food choices with like choice architecture, like Alan's partner Rihanna has been doing a lot of at Forward Food, and our friends at Greener by Default. I have a friend doing a pilot at the Global Affairs Canada's department for plant-based cafeteria, I believe she's doing a pilot. So yeah, lots of different things that we can plug into and connect to increase plant-based foods and get the vegan message out there.
Yeah, and it does give all of these groups and new initiatives a little focal point, like to be able to have schools be able to do Veganuary, that would be pretty awesome. Excellent, Nital. Daniel, you're kind of coming at it from a little bit of a different angle. So tell us a little bit about what drew you to Veganuary.
I'll just give you a quick rundown. And by the way, I want to say thanks for having me here. I joined UI in mid 2021, and I joined in business development. And I quickly got involved with our Ripples program, which is our corporate social responsibility program, as a volunteer. And then, I found out about our global Veganuary challenge with UI, and I joined up to that. And that was my first real foray. That's the first time I had heard about Veganuary. First time I'd explored veganism in any way. And
Daniel, can I jump in for a second? Can you just give a little, for folks that don't know what EY is, give a little background?
Yeah, so Ernst & Young is one of the big 4 tax accounting firms. We have 450,000 people across 150 countries. So that's one of the things that attracted me to EY is that we have actually this incredible reach. And in Canada, we have about 8,700 people. So I wanted to, after participating in the global challenge, I wanted to launch a Canada-specific challenge, which was this year, actually in 2024. And we engaged with a lot of people, and there was a lot of interest. I think one of the things about the workplace is people don't think about you're spending most of your life typically at work, and the being a workplace that entertains clients and has all kinds of events in the office, there's a lot of catering that happens. And one thing we noticed was that there weren't any vegan options, very few even vegetarian options. So we talk a lot. We've been talking a lot since the pandemic, a lot about wellness, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. But diet is not ever or really rarely in that conversation, and it should be, right? Like a lot of BIPOC folks are actually lactose intolerant, and they might actually prefer a vegan option, right? But these things aren't part of the conversation. So one of my goals was to really bring that into the conversation. Not only that, for inclusion, but we really focus on the sustainability and sort of emissions effect on the environment side rather than the moral or ethical standpoint, because it's again similar approach to as Veganuary takes to sort of put it in ways that are non-confrontational. In Canada, UI just signed the net zero challenge pledge. So I think we actually have a big role to play in those scope 3 emissions, which you can track through food that's served and what we buy as an organization. And that's 16 offices across Canada, and it's this massive, buying power that we have. So, and we hopefully by that, leading by example, we can get other companies to get on board as well.
Okay, so Daniel, I'm going to be so curious. I'm going to get you to take us through what, not right at this moment, but I'm going to come back
Sure.
to it, and we're going to have you take us through what doing a workplace challenge looks like. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Alan, what about you? What is it about Veganuary that's like gotten your passion going?
Yeah. First, I want to say, thank you so much for having me. I've been to a few of these, and it's always so much fun. So I'm happy to be part of it. Such a great host to make everything so exciting.
Aw, stop it, Alan.
Yeah. For me, Veganuary, I've heard vaguely of it. Since I've been vegan for a few years. The first time I heard more about it, I think a couple of the founders were on the Chick Peeps podcast. That's Ivana Lynch's podcast a few years ago, and I was listening to that, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a pretty cool campaign. Yeah, I've tried to encourage a few people to take it. And then recently, I've become president of Veg Ottawa just this year, and we're sort of changing our focus at the organization. Well, not entirely, but kind of expanding, I guess, our reach. So we've been doing a lot of community building and events and things like that. And I'm hoping to bring us more into the advocacy space with different initiatives. So for example, we're planning Veg Fest to bring that back to Ottawa for next year, which is pretty exciting. And also something like Veganuary is a perfect fit. So when Nital brought this up, I was really intrigued and excited to do get the organization into more advocacy work and trying to change more hearts and minds. And yeah, I'm happy and excited to be a part of it.
Thank you, Alan. Well, okay, so there are a lot of aspects of Veganuary in the big picture, the restaurant stuff, corporate things, famous people, all that, which you're going to be feeding into, Veganuary Canada will be, everybody's going to get the same sort of info and access to assets as everyone else. But let's talk about what's in store for Veganuary Canada specifically. Are you doing a little of everything? Are you focusing more on a particular element in the first year, understanding that this is something that will build over the years? So yeah, Alan, let's start with you. Is there a big focus on something particular this year?
This year, yeah, it's very much we're coming into the campaign a little bit later than many partner orgs would. So we are focusing largely on trying to just get as many people to sign up as we can. So everyone here, share that link or those links and tell all your friends. Yeah, we have a secret target we're trying to hit, and we'll see if we get there. We may be having a little bit of a competition between the organizations across the country.
Ooh, I love it.
Just a friendly.
That they're ahead now because Daniel had a huge and we didn't know that till after I put out the idea of a competition.
Oh, because of Daniel, their Veg Ottawa is killing it, right?
Yeah, it's start on an even playing ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's our big focus.
Funny.
Yeah, our big focus is just signing up as many people as we can. So really the big push, it's called Veganuary, but for us, most of the work happens right now and trying to get people to sign up to do the thing in January. So that's what we're working on. And Joyce, I think, is in the audience. She's our social media master. She's doing a lot of great work on creating the calendar and campaign and graphics and stuff for that. So she's really pushing that for us and doing great work.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that because I do want to know what sort of assets that folks can use to be able to promote, as of now. Nital, one of the other things that I understand you're doing is really trying to get prominent figures on board. Tell us a little bit about that.
Correct. Getting I mean, city councilors and mayors, we sent out emails to them just this week, and we're also targeting school board trustees. I think it's for obvious reasons when we just talked about the school food program and leading by example. And for those who've kind of attended some of these lunchtime lives, they might have heard that we've been Alan's partner Rihanna, myself, your partner Matt. We've been working with city councilors in Toronto, so it made sense. This is a great area though for others. We're spanning just a few cities, the major ones: Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver. But as I know in your network, you have a ton of people in other places, and we're not going to be able to cover all that ground in this short amount of time. So when you mentioned the assets, one thing that we'll have ready very soon, it's actually the next thing I have to do between now and my next panel, is templates for like some of the facts and stats that you kind of heard me list off, that people can just select what they like if they want something for a short preamble. But then also, examples of what we've done for outreach to school board trustees and city councilors. But if anybody has idea in this community, and feel free to type it in the chat for other folks that we should be considering. We do have a celebrity list that is aspirational. I know Veganuary has had some big Canadian celebrities like Pamela Anderson in there, but this is what's part of the beautiful. This is the beautiful part of the campaign, is we can crowdsource with all these great passionate vegans out there, and take all the great ideas and the great connections in all the different places and put them to use. So stay tuned. We'll share a link. I'm sad that I didn't have it completely ready for you today, but it'll cover. If you want to reach out to folks in your city council or your school boards, some of the things you can say. Veganuary has a really good resource drive that they shared with us, and then we just tailored it a little bit more to Canada. Amazing. And and I think we have a few other areas, like if people want to individually go to restaurants, for example, their favorite restaurant chain, they have a vegan or vegetarian menu. I know Jenny and I talked about this spontaneously last week. So there's going to be stuff we can share, and then we're happy to also take in information. Everybody else has great ideas or suggestions here.
Well, what I would really like to do is I would like to get into some of the nuts and the bolts. We have our super soldiers here who are, ready to do things. And so let's really talk about some of the details about how they can help get Veganuary launched.
Okay, so the very basic way to sign up for the Canadian Pledge, which you should do even if you're vegan, because it's filled with great recipes and some tips that, like, even for me as a 14-year vegan, I still find useful stuff every year. There was a tip last year about how not to get your plant-based milk to curdle in your coffee, which has changed my morning.
Can you share that with us right now?
Yes. So two things, but the biggest one is temperature, right? So if you put ice cold milk in hot coffee, you're set up for disaster. So they say, while you're making your coffee, pour the milk in the cup, let it get up to room temp. And then instead of adding milk to coffee, add coffee to milk. So put the milk in first, pour the coffee in slowly, and then it heats with the coffee. Yeah, game changer.
Worth the price of admission, folks, right there.
There's plenty of fun stuff in there, even if you're already totally on board. So basically, you're just going to go to veganuary.com. You're going to see in the top right corner this little planet. And if you open that up, it will take you to all the different options around the world where you can join. And you'll see the option here for Canadian English. And then also there's a Canadian French option. Now, this will just get you into like the generic Canadian pledge of your choice. But if you want to sign up through, Veg Ottawa, through VegTO, if you're looking to boost their numbers for the competition, you can just go to their social media, go to their websites, and they will have their own dedicated links they're promoting. So you're going to get the same content no matter where you sign up, but they'll be able to tell kind of who you signed up through. And then maybe you'll be able to receive some regional communications afterwards. So nice. I think that's the basics. And I can just show you really quickly, if helpful, like what you'll get. So
yeah, that would be amazing.
You sign up, you start to get a daily email. The team at Veg Ottawa has been really diligently going through and making sure that it's Canada relevant. So all the content in here should speak, to the audience in Canada, but every day we'll have different tips. So here's an example of the day 7. It talks about the dairy industry, some great infographics that you can share for your own advocacy if you're already vegan. Goes to blogs that give you tips for swapping your cheese options, and then of course some nice Canadian recipes like an easy vegan
Mm.
poutine. So yeah, totally worth signing
Wow.
up, and I think that's all you need to know.
Excellent, Wendy. Thank you so much. Yeah, and just so we know, once they sign up, they can choose whether to start getting some info immediately or not till January 1st, things like that. And then once January 1st happens, they're getting like basically an email each day with a new tip or a new something or a new encouragement or something like that.
Exactly. Yep. So it's a daily email.
Okay.
And you can opt to start immediately if you want to start receiving the emails, sooner than later. But I think the automatic will start you on January 1st so that you're part of a larger campaign.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. So now, Nital, can you talk a little bit more about if someone is going, okay, yeah, Veganuary is rocks and I really want to get behind this, how folks maybe should approach their personal networks around signing up? Are there, how would you pitch it? Are there any sort of talking points that folks should sort of keep in mind?
Short of just guilt tripping them with love. Yeah, I will say actually just to wrap your last point there, because Wendy, that was great, the email series, and shout out to Joyce and Alan at Veg Ottawa for both Canadianizing the series, but also getting it translated.
Yay.
I think if folks here, everybody who does sign up, we'd love to hear your feedback on how else you think it'd be Canadianized. The poutine was a nice touch there, Wendy. So I think Wendy and I were just chatting the other day, we very, very briefly around the power of networks. And so I think I can safely assume in this community, people are really both aware of and concerned about just the sheer power of animal agriculture and industry. It is absolutely bananas. And I was helping my colleague Dushar prepare for a huge panel today that's covering this, and it got really depressing. But what's amazing is that we have networks to combat this influence. And the power networks really come into hubs, which is what you are currently running here, Kimberly. So I would recommend that people reach out to us. Like, we'll be in touch one way or the other. I think we can send it through you even, but if folks are particularly zestful, they can also reach out to us individually. And as I mentioned, we'll have that. Our team has worked on these templates and talking points, but I really do think giving some thought as to where you might have the maximum leverage or impact. So both on the Veganuary side, like where you might know somebody who works where there's a lot of meals being served, or like grocery stores are huge if you happen to know somebody in that network, but also in your personal networks where that can be diffused as well. If you know anybody, I think leaders in general might be an obvious choice, because if you know somebody who's a senior executive or runs a lot of meetings, and they would be doing Veganuary lunches, things like that, where they can create buzz around what they're doing or get asked more questions. To me, that seems like the very obvious place to start. But like I said, there's also, so universities and schools are the best as well for getting behavioral change to spread. These strong ties are really important, and those are hotspots. So I would really encourage people, most people know somebody who's in school or in university, whether it's they have a kid or other. So there's been plenty of work that I've been part of before Veganuary came along in terms of school board outreach, et cetera. And we're trying to pull in the best information there and customize it as much as we can. The Toronto District School Board, for example, is the fourth biggest in North America, 247,000 meals a day for students. And so they don't do very much on food. So these kinds of things, as people might remember here, our friend Valerie Truitt-Guelph is running a plant-based childcare center. There's all these different elements. So it'd be great if we could have people give some thought to that, where the biggest areas of influence in their personal networks are, and then also the areas where they kind of have at least, a loose but preferably strong tie in these different areas where food is being served.
So, Nital, just so that the folks know, because there probably are people that are going to want to approach different influencers that they know, the template, how are folks going to be able to, who should they get in touch with to be able to access that?
You can get in touch with all of it. I mean, I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay.
It's nital@veg.ca. So yeah, it'll be done shortly. And we do have a spreadsheet. I sent it around to Canadian Brain Trust, we called it. And we have an influencer list that we started recently. Daniel came up with a great idea the other day of having a QR code for those who are activists and doing a lot of on the ground works, like, the Jenny McQueens and Jamie Wilsons out there. You can maybe put that on a, a sign if you're going out anywhere, etc., and people can sign up. But I love that idea. So we'll include all of this into this one document, and then we can
Okay.
send it through you, and people can also reach out to us.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so let's, Alan, can you give a little bit of a sense of, you're like, oh, I want to send out an email, or I want to do a social media post, for my friends here in Canada who I'd like to see if they'll get on board with it. Any suggestions on some of the things that you might want to hit in that, in that communication?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I guess it depends on who you expect most people that you're sharing this with. Like if you're very embedded in the vegan community, then maybe you want to target more like disseminating it more widely. But if you have a lot of non-vegans in your network, then maybe you'd want to be a bit more hitting
Personal.
the maybe common talking points, things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know Wendy has lived with Veganuary for many years now. Wendy, what would some of those talking points be that are most important to get forward to people?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think it's a nuanced one too, depending on the group and what might light their fire and where they're at in their journey. But I think one thing I've really learned over the years is that humans are just such social creatures, and feeling like we're part of something bigger is so important. And this kind of kicks back to what Nital was saying about network science. But I always like to emphasize, like, this is a movement. Millions of people around the world are doing this. Like, join in. Don't you want to be a part of it? I always try to use that type of messaging. Like the ship is sailing, jump on it. So people feel like they're, kind of celebrating this moment in time that's bigger than all of us. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but I think that's where I'd start.
Well, I'm going to throw a question in here that Christine asked, Christine. No, sorry. Let me see who it was.
Kimberly,
Somebody
can I just say while
asked.
you're looking for
Yeah,
that?
please go for it.
The recipes are pretty amazing. And I don't know, we have all sorts of age ranges here, but I have a ton of people in my communities who would want to go more vegan or do respond really well to the recipes. Like, that's one of my favorite parts of the campaign. And so I've noticed some success already with friends of mine who have mentioned I would cook more vegan. The other thing is just as we were talking about earlier, is like for school board outreach, it really, like, you can find when you're looking for organizations, like what their lead interest is. Peel is, we're just talking about Toronto, eco is their main focus. Peel is very focused on systemic racism and on diabetes. There's a huge health crisis there. So just giving that some thought might inform you in terms of what they want to lead and how they want to make their pitch. Like, I really suggest using the whole toolkit, but you want to give some thought as to the primary driver too.
Sarah was asking, she said, this is very inspiring. I'm curious how I can engage my non-veg friends in the spirit of Veganuary without them needing to go 100% vegan for the month. I feel like there might be too much resistance if it's totally vegan, but I think they'd be open to eating more vegan options. What say you, crowd, to that? Anybody got an answer for that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that appealed to me originally about Veganuary was that it wasn't all or nothing, right? Like, you can participate, any participation is good. So whether that's one, obviously we want, the ideal is 31 days vegan, but it's not reasonable to expect that from most people who this is might be their first time trying it out. So like 1 meal a day out of 3, try it, going vegan. Even if it's 1 meal a week, try a new vegan recipe a week. Like, you have to meet people where they're at. There's not everyone, but some people who are resistant, I guess, you have to meet them where they're at and say, what would you be willing to try? For example, among my friends, I'm probably one of the only plant-based vegan diet people. So it's difficult sometimes to decide on meals. But I'll host whenever I'm hosting something at my house. I always say, well, it's a potluck, bring a vegan dish. And I thought I would get resistance, but it was amazing, the enthusiasm. My friends were writing me like, "Hey, I found this really cool recipe. I think I'm gonna bring this. What do you think?" And it was really incredible. So you'd be probably surprised by just putting that olive branch out there and saying like, "Hey, I'd love to do this together. Let me help you participate like at your own leisure." And then maybe next year they'll do it the full 30 days. Maybe they'll see there's something to it, right? So I think you've just got to start small, um, understand where people are at. That would be my advice.
And Christine Legree said, "Thank you for that, Daniel. My spouse is a huge carnivore, so I'm going to try that." And Christine also said, "I'm having a party, and I will ask the folks to bring invited to bring only vegan items." So what are some of the other little sort of fun things that people that want to sort of inspire a whole crew to do things? And we're going to come back to you in a second, Daniel, because I want to talk about something more official with the workplace challenge. Any other little ideas that we can throw out at people as far as how to get people excited? Wendy, go ahead.
Sure. I was just going to add to what Daniel said. I think that's brilliant advice. Is whenever I'm always trying to get people in my life to do Veganuary, of course, right? It's the center of my world this time of year. So I'm like, "Oh, are you going to join this year?" And they're like, "I could do it, but I can't do cheese." I'm like, "That's great. Do that." Right. So whatever their resistance is, I just say, "Oh, you can do all of it, but cheese, that's amazing. Do it," and just kind of invite them. Sure. Like, put your money where your mouth is. And then people, kind of get in there and get excited and get into it, and maybe come back and say, "Hey, I did half the month," and that's still, I think keeping the challenge aspirational and always asking people to go for the full 30 days is like more true to our core and more honest with our mission, but recognizing that people aren't going to get it perfect is a big part of it too.
Yeah, it's just trying something new.
Buy 30 vegan cheeses for the month.
Yeah, I love that, Alan. That's great. That could be your hook, is like, let's do it, vegan cheeses every day, folks. Yeah.
Serve an Impossible Burger and not say that it's vegan.
Yeah.
See if people notice.
That's right.
Trickery is always a good approach, right?
Yeah. So let's talk, Daniel, about, for those of who are interested in launching a workplace Veganuary challenge, whether they're in a small office or a bigger office. Can you walk us through how that might go and some ideas for this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could probably do a whole webinar on this, so I'll try to keep it brief. It's fairly simple to execute a workplace challenge. Now, I'll say that with the caveat, Veganuary has a lot of great resources, obviously, that you can leverage to run the workplace challenge. So I would say start there for sure. But in Canada, we've been running our own sort of bespoke campaign, which is really centered around in-person activities which engage with people. So this is in almost all the offices across Canada. Some offices aren't really big enough to have a team to organize events, but we've done in-person cooking classes, taken over the kitchen. We've done film screenings. This year in Vancouver, they're doing a vegan product trade show with local businesses. We've done smoothie days, wine and cheese celebrations. So like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We come up with sort of an ideation list starting around October of, we probably have about 25 or 30 different ideas that people can plug and play into their office. And we're really lucky to have a network of a local lead in each office that's able to plan those events. But we really want to be sparking conversations, provide learning opportunities, have that networking, the ability to network. Someone's walking by, they see this amazing event happening, and like, "What is this?" "Oh, it's Veganuary." What is that all about? So it really like expands the conversation. So you don't need money to do it. You can have sort of free events or no cost events, like I would say a potluck, or getting together. Bring your lunch, bring a vegan lunch, and come check out a film about veganism or something related to plant-based diets. But it does make it a lot easier when you have investment from your leadership. So for us, that's an endorsement from the executive So that has actually allowed us to then ask for money and fund these events in each office. So it it is helpful to have that buy-in, and I'm happy to talk to anybody outside of this who's interested in how do you frame that conversation and what those talking points are that you can come forward with. But you can run a solid campaign with $0 for sure. And like word of mouth is huge, engaging people in ways that they enjoy, figuring out what people want to do, and then organizing events around that. So yeah, we're not trying to be pushy, but we want to provide as much opportunity for people to participate as we can. So
Amazing.
I'm again
Yes.
happy to, if I can put my email here in the chat if anyone wants to. I'm happy to connect with you one-on-one.
Fabulous. And Nital also shared there are actually, Wendy, Veganuary has resources for those who want to do a workplace challenge, right? Like how to get it started, some ideas around it too. Is that right?
Yeah, so if you go to the page that Nital just put in the chat, there's all kinds of fun stuff. There's a toolkit for kind of tips and ideas, and then you can click through that and find templates for inviting your coworkers to get involved, and posters that you can hang up in the lunchroom, and yeah, all kinds of things that have been collated from different partners around the world that they've created for these challenges.
Fabulous.
It's
Excellent.
awesome resource.
Yeah. Yeah. And folks, just so I know we're already, close to January, that might not be time this year, but just, to get things percolating, or you do a really simple one for this one. You do a potluck to start off Veganuary, and do something at the end to celebrate the end of it. So and then just, offer the challenge up to folks. So Alan, if folks are wanting to start promoting Veganuary, are there sort of some graphics and everything that it would be good for them to use?
Yeah, I believe Joyce has shared a couple of posts in the chat already that we have shared, and we will continue to share on those channels on Facebook, on Instagram, different graphics. Some are from Veganuary, some are homemade, and some are
Nice.
collaboration, I think, of the two. But yeah, we'll continue to share resources on our page, and then yeah, feel free to share those as widely as everyone can.
And this is on, is this the Veg Ottawa page, Alan? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So people could grab some things from there and use that.
Exactly. And it'll
Yeah.
probably be shared also on the other pages as well. I think we'll have some collaborator posts and things like that.
Collaborator posts. Okay. Amazing. So Joyce, if you wouldn't mind putting those links in one more time for folks, that would be really great for people to see. Okay, I have some questions from the crew. Dennis Biomi is asking, we'd be most interested in helping promote Veganuary through our Vegan Greens Caucus at the Green Party of Manitoba. Will you be inviting political organizations? So yeah, anybody want to field that?
Alan has, we have a small list of MPPs. Alan and I were both at the plant-based meet and greet in Ottawa, which had World Animal Protection led that and had some MPs. Everybody here probably knows Nathaniel Erskine-Smith. But yeah, Alan, do you have any other thoughts for beyond the MPPs?
Yeah, I mean, we've started to reach out to some city councilors, MLAs, MPPs, MPs. If anybody wants to do that outreach for us, we're happy to have the help. But yeah, we're definitely engaging politicians at all levels of government and other public figures as we can think of them.
Yeah, amazing. And I think, Dennis, I think the Vegan Greens Caucus is actually a group within the Green Party of Manitoba. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, that you're looking for basically kind of almost like to do it as a workplace challenge, but with the Greens Caucus. Is that sort of what you'd recommend, Wendy? Is that sort of how it works? If there's basically any nonprofit, any org, they're just going to kind of conduct it like they would a workplace challenge?
Yeah, I've seen it look a few different ways. So we've had quite a few teams work with politicians, and it just depends if they're doing it as a group or as individuals. So we have seen, like political caucuses take it on more like a workplace challenge. For example, not that this is a caucus, but city governments are really into Veganuary in the US. So we had the city of Austin all do it together. I think it was the city of San Antonio, their government did it. So those we handle a bit more like a workplace challenge. But then we've also had individual politicians step forward and want to kind of work a PR angle on it a little bit. So, for example, there was a presidential candidate in Chile who officially became a participant, gave us a quote about why they were participating, and encouraged other Chileans to take the pledge. And that got some really nice media coverage. So yeah, depending on the situation, I think you could take it a few different ways.
Amazing. Thank you. Candace Best, one of our lovely PR people in the community, has been just putting all sorts of ideas in there. So I'll send you guys the transcript afterwards so you can catch some of them. Was asking about media, any sort of media coverage planned, any sort of media plan now. And I know, again, this is the first year sort of trying to start slow and build. But is there any way that folks could incorporate, could help, around media? Like, for example, Wendy, do you encourage, letters to the editor when possible about that, encourage or bring attention to Veganuary? Any sort of ideas around media?
Yeah, I think for this one, I would defer to Daniel and Alan and Nital. We really kind of create the moment and create the resources, but we want to give our country partners the leverage to really make it their own, and they are handling all the media outreach. So I'll let them respond.
Yeah.
So it's funny, Candace asked this question. That's awesome, because I just put in the Slack group, I think yesterday or today, I think I saw that we need to talk media more in terms of getting more active there, and we could definitely use the help, Candace. It would be a pleasure to work with you and draw on your experience here. I also know there might be some plant-based treaty folks in here. I've been meaning to reach out to Anita. They have a very extensive list for reaching out to media contacts as well. So like we've had a loose plan for a little while, but we have to actually, like, now is definitely the time to act on that. And I love the idea, by the way. I know as our time is wrapping, somebody put in the chat the idea of there being a thread in your Animal Justice Academy Facebook group, wherever. Yeah, that's a great idea. So this could continue iterating on that thread. But yeah, Candace, we would welcome having a discussion with you about where we're currently at and the contacts we have, and then go from there in terms of your suggestions and those of others who have experience with whether it's letters or actual digital. I mean, media like TV outlets, things like that. We have it broken down right now roughly for this group. We'll probably rotate coverage for national media coverage, should there be any, and then regionally it will be the organizations involved. So we have Vancouver Humane Society and a dedicated person who's leading some chapter at the university, Angel, and Sarita Lopez from Vancouver Humane Society. We also have Alex and some of his team from Festival de Montreal Vegan. And so, yeah, it's kind of exciting. There's others who are interested in joining too. So it would be great to get the thoughts from this crowd as well for future organizations who might want to join the coalition.
And there have been some people have dropped in some suggestions in there in the chat, so I'll pass those on to you as well. Okay, so sort of wrapping it up here, the biggest things that we would love to see from our AJ super soldiers are promoting it on social media, reaching out to networks of non-vegans, and giving them some sort of incentive to, as a group, be able to do this together. Also looking at, can we throw together a workplace challenge, and are there any sort of leadership people that we could get on board for Veganuary? Did I sort of cover some of the main goals? Okay, excellent, yay. All right, kids, how are you feeling? AJers, are we raring to go with Veganuary? Ready to give us a big yes exclamation mark if you're ready to go with promoting Veganuary and be able to give our first Canadian Veganuary a nice little kick forward kind of thing. So, yes, very good, awesome. I love seeing that. Woo! Yes, for sure. You bet. Your plant-based butt. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Wendy and Nital and Daniel and Alan. Of course, not just for being here today, but for all of this incredible work you're doing. This, like I said, it's so nice to see Canada officially part of the Veganuary, train. And I think we're only going to grow bigger and better from here. So let's take us back to gallery view and be able to see everybody. Thank you so much, AJers, for being willing to be here and being willing to take part in this. This is a great campaign, well designed, has such a rate of success, and I think it's a really important one to get behind. Can we give Wendy, Alan, Daniel, and Nital a big Animal Justice Academy? Thank you for being here. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, have a good one, folks. Do us up Veganuary well, okay? Take care.
Let's go viral.
Let's do it. Bye.